Welcome back. It's time for Tuesday Tips with Whitfield Ministries. Now, I'm hosting today. It's a different day. It's a different host. It's a different Tuesday. This is a weekly conversation for you to gather you and your leaders around the table to get some nuggets to go to the next level. You know, Pastor Whitfield for the last several weeks has had Pastor John Grunwald and Ken Taylor on, and what a privilege to have you guys still with us, still in the studio, still in town, and wow, the value of leadership and what we just witnessed over Lead 23 has been powerful. And you guys have been really digging up some hard questions, some hard topics. Obviously, you taught on questions, Pastor John.
I did.
And it was, and it was phenomenal.
It was phenomenal.
And we talked about relationships. In the last couple of weeks, you've been talking about building teams, functioning teams, who you have on your team. How do you? So we've got a question that has come in. Remember, we have this Tuesday tip jar. It's not there just to look pretty on our set. It's not there. It's there so you can actually send us questions, and Pastor Whitfield can answer those questions. But there was a question that came in. I'm not going to pull it out of the jar. We've got it, but I've written it down on my tablet. You know, you guys were all talking about your teams, and you do it in Europe, and you do it in the Middle East and all over Africa. You do it in all the French-speaking. We're doing it here in the United States of America with our teams. How do we get to where you are, where you guys are, or where we've been with our teams? How do we get to that level? Got any ideas, wisdom?
Yeah, well, first of all, it's never about the destination. It really is about the journey. We feel like in so many ways, even though we've been doing this a long, long time, I'm not even going to count the years, but decades. And in so many ways, we feel like we're just getting started.
Yeah.
There's so many things we're learning, and the more we learn, the more we realize we need to learn more.
That's right. Pastor Whitfield taught it that, you know, we learn, we unlearn, we relearn, and we do it again, adjust and go again. And I agree, because, you know, Pastor Whitfield says he sat through 52 basic trainings. I haven't sat through that many basic trainings, but under Pastor Whitfield's tutelage, I sat through him teaching it, right. And I'm still going, oh, yeah, I need to do that better,
right?
Or I need to.
And we've talked to people that get discouraged, actually, coming to leadership events or coming to lead even. It can be overwhelming at times when you realize, wow, this is where we really need to be there, but we are so far from where we would like to be. And you can have two possible reactions. Either you can let yourself get discouraged about it, or you can say, you know what, it's a journey. We're going to take the next steps, and with God's grace and his help, we're going to get there.
Well, let's talk about that a little bit, guys, because when you look at the meat behind that question, how do we get to where you are with our teams? Obviously, they're seeing something, or they're not functioning something. Whether you're working with a volunteer team, or they're working with a paid staff team. There's a lot of different dynamics when you know, Pastor Whitfield says we work in teams, teamwork, team building, but there are some dynamics to that that we can unpack to help people. So, Pastor John, give us a dynamic quote, a dynamic response.
Well, I will say this, that I mean, of course, when Michelle and I started out, it was Michelle and I. And,
me, myself, and I. We had three, right?
Yeah, that was pretty much it. And you know, you can only do so much by yourself, and you're trying to, you know, we didn't even know how to share a vision hardly of what we felt God wanted us to do. And that's why I think in the beginning it's always good to become a part of a team before you ever lead a team. Ooh. Sounds obvious, but not everybody wants to do that.
Yeah.
So, you know, when you become a part of it, it helps. And over the years, one of the things that we learned that works with both volunteers and those that might be paid, and then we have, you know, in our circles, we have another category of people who are almost peers, all going in the same direction in other nations. They're not paid by us. They're not paid necessarily by Rhema, but we share a common vision.
Yeah.
And still then somebody has to lead that.
Yeah.
And so you've got that dynamic there too. But I will say this, and this is something we are going through with our teams. We've been doing this for a year or two now, just on 5 steps, you know, on how you build a team or how you start a team.
Wow.
And because we noticed that other people were struggling with that too, even in our circles. And so we've been walking through that process one step at a time, like sometimes once a month, going over that, teaching, getting feedback and all those kind of things, because it's such a valuable skill to learn how to build a team. And part of that is envisioning and attracting people to what you're doing.
That's true.
Right. Well, I'll go back a step, and I know what it's like also when it was me, myself, and my beautiful wife.
Yep.
And realizing that you have this vision that you know is from the Lord. It's a mandate which is way bigger than you could ever accomplish. But the first leadership lesson I had to learn was I needed to lead myself.
Yep, there you go.
I needed to make a commitment to growth. I needed to make a commitment to learn what it means to be a leader and what it doesn't mean to be a leader. And so that was for us probably the biggest step. And that was a years-long process that continues to today. But in those before I could even dream of building a team, I needed to build myself, and
absolutely.
that took some time.
And it does take time. And I think when you look at the dynamics, and I want to find out what those. You said you had 5 steps. I want to see what some of those steps are. Maybe we'll get to that one next time. But it does take time. When you see Pastor Whitfield come up there and going on 42 years, this is not the team he had when he started this process. Many of us, we can look back, and it takes time to build that trust, to build that safe harbor, to build that accountability, to build that relationships you talked about.
Right.
There are some relationships that they no longer wanted to go the direction we were going. So I do think it takes a lot of time.
Well, there's I'm going to say, I think this is in Proverbs. I know it's not. It sounds like it should be. But it's an old saying that says, stick and stay and it'll pay.
Woo!
Mm-hmm.
And
sounds like something Solomon would say.
Well, it may be, and sometimes, I was thinking about the three of us, in a previous session, and you included now, and it's not that any of us are so bright or so talented with leadership or anything else, but we stuck with something.
There you go.
Through faith and patience, we inherit the promises.
Yes, he actually knows the Scripture.
He knows the Scripture. That's good. I'm glad we got him on the show.
Yeah, I know it. He backed it up with Scripture. Thank you. But it was, sometimes we just had to. We knew we were on the right path. We might have not even been getting what we were supposed to get, or know what we're supposed to know, or be all the places we're supposed to be. But we're on the right path, and we're going to stay here and get it.
I love that. And stay here and get it. And even if because we've all been taught this, you go down a path and it's not the way where you're supposed to go. What do we know to do? We've been taught, go back to the last time you had that peace, you had that knowing, you had that, readjust, reevaluate, look at your team. So and Pastor Whitfield's had to do that.
Right.
We all
had to do that.
Yeah.
Well, the mandate that we really feel like the Lord gave us, we're going back 35, 37 plus years. And some of the things that the Lord spoke to our heart are just now beginning to come to pass. Yep. So we're not talking about a 3-month or a 3-year process. It's a lifetime of learning.
It is, absolutely.
And I think we can also add into there, how do you get to where we are with your teams? There's a big culture factor in there. When you look at the 4 cogs, there's strategy, culture, not strategy. Organize, culture, strategy, and action. I got to get them right. See, Pastor Whitfield's going to be watching this, and he's going to tell me, Pastor Michael, it's organize, culture, strategy, and action, and we don't have time to break into it. But there's a cultural part of that, depending on where you're watching. I know what you deal with in the French-speaking culture, which you've dealt with in, even the difference between Europe and Africa, then the Middle East, there's a whole different culture, even here in America. So how we deal with those teams and those team dynamics, I think, is critical.
It is. And so one of the things I'm so grateful for was the simple revelation that in ministry you're either leading, managing, or doing.
I've heard that before.
You've heard that before, and that's been really something that has impacted us. But depending on what culture you're working in, being able to inculcate that into the minds and the thinking. For instance, there's some in some cultures that we work in, they're used to command and control leaders, that they're used to getting orders, and any kind of questioning of those orders is seen as insubordination. They're not being submitted to authority. And so people come into teams with this fear factor of they're afraid to speak up, they're afraid to propose ideas, which is exactly what we need and must have.
That's right. We got to mine those resources.
So we need to learn to, as leaders, we need to be able to change that culture and the way people think, that it's okay. We don't want you to tell us what you think we want to hear. We want you to go to God and get some ideas and plans and propose.
Yeah. There's a huge difference in cultures with, you can have maybe what we call a basic teaching on leadership, and it is heard different ways. And we found that out the hard way, of course, because you're talking about something and people are saying something else. You're going, I don't think we're talking about the same thing.
Are we on the same page?
Yeah, and so we had to learn there were certain things that we talked about, coming from America and that background that just had to be explained differently and said differently. And, where you get, some warm culture, climate people, they will resist really bringing ideas out or being truthful in the team setting the way they need to. And then there's other cultures who they really want to be.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. They really want to
be. They want to be up there.
Yeah.
Well, no matter what culture you're in, no matter what team you're leading, no matter where your ministry is at, whether you're in inner city, you're out in the country, even that in America can be that way, or whatever nation you are in, we at JB Whitfield Ministries are here to assist you, to come alongside of you. Please follow us on all of our social media. Go to our websites. Tuesday Tips comes live every Tuesday at 10 a.m. Facebook, on YouTube. Make sure you go there. You subscribe. Turn on the notifications so whenever it goes live, you're going to get a reminder to say, hey, you need to watch. If you need assistance from JB Whitfield Ministries, give us a call and mark your calendars for February 7th and 8th, Lead Plus Simulcast, 12 to 2 Eastern Standard Time. It's a free simulcast. Registration will be open. You can follow that registration and sign up so you don't miss any of the leadership nuggets. Once again, it's such a pleasure to have Pastor John Grunwald and Ken Taylor on Tuesday Tips with us. I'm Pastor Michael Watson, sitting in for Pastor J.B. Whitfield. This is Tuesday Tips, and we'll see you next Tuesday.
Thank you for joining us on Tuesday Tips. We invite you to like, follow, share, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss an episode. To find out more information about JB Whitfield Ministries, visit us at jbwhitfield.com.